Welcome to the Didi and Littell Show. Advice, thoughts, and stories from a married couple on cybersecurity, technology, and life in general. Now here are your hosts, Didi and Littell.
Hello and welcome to the Didi and Littell Show. It's another week in Crazy Land. What's up, Didi?
Hockey, high school hockey, is coming to an end today.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
The pain.
I did not think it's going to be that bad.
Well, our kids are missing the last game of the season because we'll be skiing in France.
Because we'll be skiing in France.
Which is so much better than the last Newton North, Newton South match.
Yes.
I mean, without Omri, our team's chances...
They're not going to score. They're not going to put a single goal. Yes.
Did they tell coach that they're not going to be there?
I do not.
Oh my God, I'm gonna kill them if they didn't tell the coach that they're missing the game.
So
I don't think they told coach.
Yes, producer
Dave. Not going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
We got two, not one, two family Gordie Howes.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what it means to get a family Gordie Howe?
A family I think a Gordie Howe is something like a hat trick, but it involves penalty minutes also.
So a Gordie Howe is a goal, an assist, and a fight.
Okay.
You don't need to win need to win the fight, but you have to get in a fight.
I didn't. There's fighting in high school hockey?
Yes.
Apparently.
Yes.
Depends on the team you're playing.
Especially if you play Chelmsford.
Yeah. Boxborough.
Yes. Boxborough, Chelmsford. There's a whole bunch of...
Once you get out of the 128 ring, you may get into a fight.
The parents have no life, no nothing, and all they show up in droves to the high school hockey. And
in a random 4 p.m. afternoon when people actually have work.
Exactly.
You went to a game.
Yes, I did.
On a random afternoon in Boxborough.
No, Chelmsford.
Okay.
Chelmsford.
Yeah.
And so a family Gordie Howe is when Omri scores the goal and an assist, actually multiple goals and multiple assists, and Ron gets into a fight.
And then we lose. And then team loses.
No, that's why he gets in the fight, because Omri puts them like 5-1 ahead, and then the team kind of gives up 6.
Are your sons familiar with the film Slapshot?
Of course they are.
Oh, good.
Yes.
And the Hanson brothers.
And we've. By the way, speaking of the Hanson brothers,
is it the Umbap?
No.
That's the Hanson brothers that I know.
Different Hanson brothers.
Exactly.
I showed you that. Remember that? Dave's a killer. Well, Dave's a mess.
As you see, I'm kind of like my pop culture knowledge is the Umbap.
Yes, the kids loved the kids used to love the part where the first time the Hansons go on the ice. They love that. By the way, having the Kachuk brothers centered by Jack Eichel is very much like that, especially when they play a soft team. I'm just waiting to see how basically they Hanson McDavid. Yes.
Cool. So, in the world of major trolling, recently it was in the news, this concept that I wanted to bring it, and I think it's like very relevant to cybersecurity. But let's start with the global thing and why people talk about it. There is this concept called, you will say it, because
the Overton window.
The Overton window. So the Overton window, and producer Dave, you can bring in the Wikipedia page of what it means. Basically, it is this concept that there is a window of what's accepted in public speech, which ideas are okay, which are acceptable, and everything that is like beyond that is considered not accepted, obscene, for example. And the idea that the Overton window over time shifts, it moves. So ideas that in the past were unthinkable, take gay marriage, for example, then become mainstream. And the opposite, like thinking that gay marriage are not a good thing, is now unthinkable. Or, for example, take slavery. In the past, for thousands of years, slavery was mainstream. Nobody even had a thought that, it's not okay to own a person and tell them what to do for their entire life and have the entire family, belong to you. And it's not overnight, but it's not over such a long time that this window shifted from being the mainstream, nobody even thinking that the concept is wrong, to completely flipping. And everybody says that Chief Troll Trump is like now the expert of overnight flipping the Overton window of what we think. I'll give one example that everybody speaks about, especially in Israel, that
Can I pause you?
Yeah, sure. Before we go into the politics.
Before we go into the politics,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of the Overton window when we were talking about stuff. So remember, me and Martin, as I was driving in the car, and you and Martin had a very nice conversation. We were talking about what will we view
in the future.
What will our grandkids look at us and say, oh, grandpa did this? Because we were talking about the fact that basically all our grandparents were racists. And to a level that is...
Or sexist, or whatever is considered today.
All of our grandparents were racist to a level that is very unacceptable to us.
Yes.
That we saw people that were kind and very good.
Kind, loving, everything, positive people... But they were racist.
But they were racist, and to a level that to us was very cringeworthy.
More than cringe. It's kind of almost like to a crime level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is something that is now completely unacceptable. But when they were growing up, this was like a part of life.
That was culture.
Yes.
That was accepted. I mean, nobody even questioned that. That
Yes.
was the way you talked.
Yes.
The way you thought.
And we said to ourselves, what are the things that we will find that way? Because, for example, Martin was saying, hey, we keep eating meat, and eventually somebody will say, you know what, you're killing people.
I mean, there is already a group that says it's murder, eating, and now it's like the group. Yeah. When would the small group of vegans that
become
you can say will become everyone, and everyone will just eat lab created meat because it's illegal or immoral to
kill an animal?
Yeah, maybe. And that was a question that we had.
Yes.
What would become the future of things we do today that will be unheard of?
Yeah.
It will be, those savages of the 2000s.
Exactly. So there'll be something that will happen.
Absolutely.
And we will not even perceive this because this is how fast the window shifts.
Moral switches pretty fast.
Yes. And I'll give you the example of how fast morals change, and which is the thing that disturbs me very deeply, which is how fast being an anti-Semite became the norm. Right now, it's okay to be a fucking anti-Semite. And you heard this.
As long as you call it anti-Zionist.
You can call it whatever.
Legit.
But the fact is that anti-Semitism came back, and you needed to get a fucking Super Bowl commercial with Tom Brady and Snoop Dogg to deal with this. And it's so bad. And this is and for many, many, many years, being an anti-Semite was the kiss of death for your business, for your politics, for your whatever. And now it's cool again. It's even hip.
It takes 50 years. And then you get Kanye.
And then you get Kanye. You get the Massachusetts Teachers Association.
Yes.
And the fact that the people feel okay to say horrible and racist, anti-Jewish things because we are white oppressors. Which, by the way, drives me bonkers. Well, the fact that most of the people don't know that there's a whole group of Sephardic Jews. So, but it's the same thing that a buddy of mine...
Which are the majority of Israelis.
Yes. Which, by the way, is...
brown skin.
Yes, which is something that a good Indian friend of mine was jokingly said that for acceptance to college, he's considered white, but a policeman stops him, he's considered black. So he says he gets screwed on both sides. So this is something that we need to understand, that it flips like this. And by the way, your Overton window flipped very, very fast because a whole bunch of stuff that you were thinking, in October 6th, you're not thinking October 8th.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of like completely flipped my worldviews, and like things that I thought were immoral, it's the opposite now. Like, I think not doing them is actually crazy and suicidal. Yeah, absolutely. So I will connect that to the why it became a hot topic in politics to talk about it is in Israel for years until a few days ago, nobody could even suggest, other than the extreme illegal the right wing of politics could say anything about transferring Palestinian population out of West Bank and Gaza. It was immoral, not something you can say. If you say it, you're a lunatic. Then Bibi Netanyahu travels to the US, meets with Trump. They have this press conference, and comes Trump, and he just says, everybody will get out of Gaza, and I'll build this beautiful Riviera. You can imagine him thinking of, the golf courses and like the Trump Towers and the casinos over there. And he's like, they're going to go to a lovely place. Who wants to be in this fucking place? It's a horrible place. And you just move them. So yeah, everybody is like overnight, everyone in Israel politics, from the right, of course, that always thought about it but couldn't say it, to the most lefties, the opposition to Netanyahu, come and said, oh yeah, it's something we should be thinking of. Why not? People have the right to go and get out of the shitty place that they live in and make themselves a new life. So let them go. So something that overnight, it was unheard of the day before. You could see Netanyahu standing in this press conference, and like his eyes are like, what did he just say? Like you can see him like doing that, and he's like, dude, that makes sense to me. Like, let's go. It's overnight. This has become de facto the thing. And I think Trump, in his way of, shifting narratives and being the chief troll, what he's doing with Doge, what he's doing, he has his way of reframing public thinking, whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. He shifts attention and shifts narratives and completely flips them. So I think we are kind of like in the era of completely erasing everything that was okay. And, that's the vibe shift. It's okay, as we said in the previous episode, is it okay to flirt at work? Like a day ago, it was Me Too. Now, everything is fine. It's legit. There is no like PC or whatever. So it's interesting. And it made me think, because now let's leave politics unless you want to comment anything on politics. I wanted to talk about how it's related to cyber, but maybe do you have something to add on the politics before we go?
The politics, I commented before because that's the thing that matters to me. But we, in the previous episode, so go listen to the previous episode if you haven't listened, we talked about the Overton window in terms of availability. In software, it became, before we talk about cybersecurity, it's worthwhile to talk about the Overton window in terms of accepted
behaviors of vendors in tech.
It's everything. So let's go one by one on the big things that shifted in tech.
Okay.
First, cloud. Everybody was talking cloud in the early 2000s, but everybody said, "Oh, outages, costs. I can't run anything on off-prem." Everybody said
it's going to be somebody else's servers, so I cannot control outages. So
exactly.
I cannot go to the cloud.
Everything is in the cloud. COVID, by the way, accelerated the cloud to velocities that the genie is never going to come back to not going back into the lamp.
And overall, I guess Are outages better or worse?
Better, much better.
Yeah, because they actually have resilience baked in that it's very hard for you to do in your server room. Like
Yes.
how much resilience you can actually build when you build it on your own, no matter how, I mean, unless you're a big bank and you can
You can't.
Even that, you cannot have as much as AWS.
Or Google or Microsoft.
Yeah.
So, or even Oracle Cloud.
Yep.
So the cloud computing, like overnight, became the thing. The cloud service.
Totally acceptable. Like the question, is it safe? Is it secure? Is it resilient? I think overnight
changed.
everybody
Basically,
accepted, yes, it is.
Exactly. March 2020.
Yeah, when we got into lockdowns
Basically,
and people couldn't go and maintain the server rooms.
exactly. Things basically, the last nail went into the coffin, and there's no conversation. Even
Sure.
the government is not talking about that aspect. The fact, if you think of the SDRs, BDRs, right now in our lives, if I open your phone, how many spam calls will I see? 15 happened while we were on here.
I mean, 99.9% of the calls are basically spam calls or
Exactly.
cold calling. Like you only get a call from, the appointment with your doctor.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
And that's also an automated call.
Yes. And by the way, speaking of that, doctors are the last bastion of whomever uses the phone, I think, because right now you book everything. It's expensive.
They have fax.
They have fax
Fax
machines.
Yeah, the window on that didn't move. They're still in this window of faxing.
But that stuff should have gone away because everybody else is doing everything online. I don't want to talk to people. I want to go. I want to click. I want to be done.
You want to talk to ChatGPT?
I don't want to talk.
Not talk. Chat with ChatGPT.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you want the chatbot.
The window shifted on that as well.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very good segue to our space, in the security space, because when we're going to talk about the shift in security, it is completely derived and related to the fact that right now we assume that we're continuously under attack, spam, other stuff. There's no privacy. And the other thing is we assume that everything's in the cloud. And because of that, our level of acceptance of breaches, data loss is immense. So if you remember Cellcom in Israel in, I think, 2008, it's when
So it's
we were dealing
cell
with,
phone provider.
Yeah,
The equivalent of T-Mobile.
exactly, had like a massive breach. They lost, remember, credit card information.
Yep.
There was like massive, and it was on the news. The Minister of Communication basically said that there's going to be an
Massive investigation, blah, blah, blah.
and people got charged for crimes on some of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like serious.
Yeah.
And there was the RSA breach.
And now there is telecommunication is being regularly targeted, not to talk about nation state, but also criminals and
Yep.
stuff. And it's another day. And
Targets.
if anything, so yeah, I want to actually, we talked, I think it all started like all the big breaches and like the awareness of, security breaches with the well-known RSA breach that we discussed on this podcast several times. Go check our old episode with Sam Carey talking about that. But I remember, is it 14 years ago?
Yep.
Yes, because
Yep.
a kid is 15-year-old. It was
Yep.
like young, maybe almost 15 years ago. RSA got breached, nation state attack. Now we can talk about that. That was massive. Like that was massive in terms of, if you think about the Overton window, like the company thought it's going to go belly up. It's going to lose all its customers. It's going to completely, cease and desist. It was also kept as a secret for a long time. You were very thoughtful about how to communicate, how to solve it, how to do that. And the fact that it's like nation state, the Chinese are accessing potentially the keys. Wow. Like nobody have heard about that. It was unbelievable. Like it was like a big movie. Then I think.
Wait 1 sec. So
Okay.
one login was ahead of Okta significantly. Significantly, not marginally, in terms of business adoption, ease of use. Everybody preferred one login.
When they built SSO as a thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
2 breaches that happened in 3 months, and they were gone.
They're still in.
They're not really. They were the number one choice. We wrote them out in CDO after the second breach. We said moving to Okta, done. It was
Okay.
like
Got it.
out.
Okay.
And it's not just us. A whole bunch of companies that have developer skills just wrote them out.
So is that like 10 years ago?
Something like that.
So you're saying that's still, so there was a business impact.
Yeah, companies had business impact.
And are you saying that probably today it wouldn't happen?
No.
Okay.
The fact is,
So-
Okta got breached 3 times. Big breaches, very well documented.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, Microsoft is free. It sucks, but it's free. Ping sucks, not free, but was giving people basically themselves for free for a year to move from Okta.
Mm-hmm.
It actually made people move away from Ping to Okta, that campaign.
Okay.
So,
but going back
so
to
just to show you that how much the window has shifted, same incident type, same company type, and not only that people didn't care, it was like free publicity.
yeah, totally. I think that the thing that actually shifted the Overton window was the Target and Home Depot breaches, and I'll explain why I think and what happened. So that was probably like 5 years after the RSA breach. Was during holiday season. Credit cards were kind of dumped into the internet. Massive breach of all Target users. I think Equifax just followed. So basically, from a consumer standpoint, that was the first time that the public became aware of this. People started getting those letters that you were part of a breach, your data might have been exposed, you may want to buy this extra layer of credit protection. People didn't know what it is. So that was on the news for a few weeks. That was like a big deal, with kind of like, and everybody thought, bottom line of Target will be hurt. Home Depot, something will happen. So yes, the CISO was let go. I think even the CEO might have stepped down or something. But at the end of the day, sales were just going up. Nothing happened. Nobody switched. Nobody even dropped the Target credit card or whatever it was. Like people kept on buying, and they kind of like, yes, it was in the news, and then it went away. So I think there was this kind of, okay, we got those letters. Okay, our data was breached. Maybe a few people bought this extra credit information, whatever, identity protection services that worth nothing. Don't go and buy it. It's a scam. I don't know. But the reality is, I think that was the point that beyond, the industry, the entire population of the United States realized, okay, I'm part of a breach. This thing happens. And then slowly people got into the notion that this is a daily thing. It happens all the time. Then LinkedIn got breached, and, your data from LinkedIn is out there. And I think people got into the acceptance that there is no privacy. Your data is out there, and everybody is being hacked. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think this what made us all in this state that we are today, that we all accept that there is no privacy, there is no security, our data is completely out, and, people say, that's why people like, you ask them about TikTok and they're like, oh, so the Chinese can spy on me. Who cares? Like everything I do is already out there. No matter what is there to be afraid of. So we're in a state that basically the only impact of a breach is probably on your insurance. That the acceptance is you just pay. Your premium maybe go up, but ransomware is part of life. What do you think?
I completely disagree. I let you filibuster.
Okay.
Just because.
Because from time to time you let me talk.
No. I enjoy to hear how you get things completely wrong. So.
F that.
No, look.
I'm right, you're wrong. I don't even know what you're about to say. You go.
Exactly.
That's always true.
I think what happened was CrowdStrike. This is the thing you don't realize. The problem is CrowdStrike.
Okay, explain.
So CrowdStrike's...
By the way, two things can be right at the same time.
Yeah, but I'm always right.
Right.
So the thing that happened really is CrowdStrike and their selling methodology of basically FUD, and more FUD.
We stop breaches. That was the...
So what happens is that there are not a lot of big breaches. There aren't a lot of big breaches. There's about 10 to 15 a year. But there's a lot of small ones. A lot of these small ones. And they happened before the big RSA breach, and they happened after. But this is kind of somebody calling the call center, getting permissions, rerouting salaries, stealing some money. The smash and grabs happened before and happened again and happened in between. But what happened was that because regulation came in, because CrowdStrike are so well connected with the government, that's why they infected everything and are basically so prevalent everywhere, because the FBI guy and Kurtz are buddies. So basically they got to a place where you have to report everything. And if I get a letter from every single vendor I send stuff to. Remember, we got from the school, because one of their services, even though our kids' data was not there, we got a letter from the school about their system getting breached. We got one from Nissan. We got one from Audi. We got one from
Equifax.
We got one
Target. And who knows? Basically, a bunch of stuff we didn't even know that we're part of the database.
Exactly. We basically got, I think, in the last year, you just don't open the mail. And
because how is it helpful to open the mail?
Yes. But
same as calls.
But the fact is that everybody, it's so desensitized us, marginal attacks with marginal impacts, that basically somebody's third-party call center got hacked.
I don't think that the ones we're getting a letter, they're not marginal.
They're marginal. They're marginal.
Data is dumped into the dark web.
No, it's marginal. Most of the time, it's marginal. It's no evidence. What happens is that the system so overreacts, rather than investigate, rather than to send you a letter that says your data was lost, because their practices are so bad and everything's so bad, what everybody's saying is they flood you with, we got breached. It's like they don't bother. If somebody...
Because there are no consequences. The only consequence is...
It's not because there are no consequences. It's because what happened was CrowdStrike made it that every marginal attack, because they couldn't find the big breaches anymore. So what they did was took the marginal ones and called them breaches. Rather than calling them an incident or a data loss event or something that... A breach for me is when, let's say I am AWS and half my data center is impacted, that's a breach. If somebody was able to cause a little DDoS attack on one of my marginal services, I don't give a fuck.
I agree that DDoS is not, but
right now,
you wouldn't say that dumping all your database to the internet is not a major breach?
It is, but that's not all what happens. Right now, because nobody researches, and the duty to report so fast. What happens is, and because CrowdStrike so desensitized the industry and so lowered the bar to what the definition of a breach is, people call me about single identity being stolen as a breach. That's not a breach. That's an incident. Or 50 identities being stolen. Is that a breach? Not a breach. For me,
so you're saying
if your database is
the definition
500,000
moved
users,
because the definition of a breach moved to less significant incident, it is sensitized, and now everything is an incident, everything is a breach, and then nobody cares.
Exactly.
So that's a move in your view.
Yes. I'll give you an example that you can see this in normal society. So there was this Netflix show that really pissed me off called 13 Reasons. And it's about a girl that kills herself, and she starts writing to people about the reasons of why she did this. And she has like 13 people she blames. And if you look at the beginning reasons, they're like, people are mean to me. And at the end, somebody raped her. When you put like somebody kissed me in the same bucket as somebody raped me, it desensitizes to rape, not to, when every incident of a contact between a man and a woman becomes sexual harassment or sexual assault, now you marginalize the bad ones for the impact of, oh, I feel threatened. Remember we had...
So you're talking about eroding those things that, you shifted gradually by, making those things that were outside of the window kind of like come in, and then it shifts. Yeah.
By the fact that you take the marginal, when you make the marginal important, you marginalize the important stuff.
I think it's both ways. It's also, the fact that the media
is hyperbolic.
And became interested in that. I think part of it is that it became an interesting story and not just an IT kind of. And once it becomes a story for everyone, I think that's where media has the power to shift those things fast. That's the going back to the Trump idea. He uses the media to do the quick flip. He uses social media, the memes, all this. There is, what you're talking about is the slow movement that when things kind of like eroding. I think what is interesting here is media in the past was not covering IT, was not into that. It was like for the industry. Once these topics become covered with main media, people talk about it in social media, then it's also people become desensitized to it. So I think it's a combination of it all. But here we are in a state that the reality is nobody cares. It's not news anymore. I mean, it's back being news for the industry. Then you can have a major hack by a nation state player on, country infrastructure. And that's maybe making New York Times headline once, but nobody even talks about it. It's kind of like goes, nobody cares. Well, it's major and should get and be on the news. Like,
that's because
it's the equivalent of, a real attack from a nation state.
This is what I'm talking about. So
it's crying wolf.
It's crying wolf. What happened was
you get desensitized.
That the fact is that the security companies, headed by one specific one, basically turned everything into crying wolf. So when the gas pipeline gets breached, nobody cares. And that was a big thing. And moreover, the whole Middle Eastern war and the Russian war.
The Russian war. Russian-Ukraine. I mean, how much cyber is used there?
Yes.
I mean, Russia, can take off the power grid in a country, including this country, I guess, if they want to.
More likely this country.
In a sweep of a second.
Yep. And that's the thing. Because we...
Actually, J.D. Vance talked about how we can build resilience and avoid it, and we're not doing that.
Yep.
I hope they build it now.
I hope they do. But this is the main...
That is something that I would like CISA to actually work on. instead of
Let's
some
start,
other stuff.
let's start by making sure that all the energy company make MFA a requirement. Let's start with something simple, like that. There's a reason why specifically several energy providers were named in that executive order.
You can also double down and have additional elements in the grid. It's not about the IT. It's about duplicating the grid.
Let's make sure that
if you're in California, you're doomed anyhow because your grid cannot
if you're in California
withstand
or if you're in
a regular day.
If you're in California or Massachusetts, you're doomed anyway. So there was a very interesting thing, speaking of the Overton window, by U-Haul. So U-Haul was running surveys for people going outside the state. And by the way, it's very, very funny how the two different news outlets reported the same thing. It's basically the Foxes of the world said it's because we in California are basically turning too woke for people to survive. And here...
So U-Haul numbers of people renting a U-Haul and leaving the state.
So they decided to run a survey of why are you leaving?
Okay.
Or somebody that attaches themselves to U-Haul decided to run the survey. So this is very funny because you'll see that how the same data is reported so differently.
Of course.
So the number one reason was cost of living, and the number two was disagreeing with policy. These were the things that
made people leave the states.
Yes.
Massachusetts and California.
Yes. And that's factual. That's not negotiable. What people, when they read the data, the way that the left presents that data is, we need to put more taxes and build lower cost housing, versus the holy shit, the taxes are insane and they're spent on useless things, and you need to spend $8.7 billion to get a porta potty installed in San Francisco and understand to fix that. So these are the things that are very interesting.
Based on your politics, you will interpret data the way you want.
Exactly. And that's a little bit of the same shift in the Overton window in terms of our kind of noise levels, insecurity as well. Because we look at the data that's being reported, and some people are trying to stoke it and how to build the next generation of their business. Think of how much FUD came out in terms of AI. Think of how big when you think of the data loss, all the data loss in the world
is going to AI these days.
All the data loss of all the companies, all the time, of all the private information that was compromised is a fraction of a fraction to how much we fed those AI monsters willingly. So,
yeah, but that's for the betterment of humanity, us going into agentic AI and
yes,
the point of robots controlling the world.
Yes.
Well, I think my bottom line is it's inevitable. People change minds, and the shift in vibe changes. It's very unpredictable, and sometimes it happens super fast, and sometimes it's slow. Like, we as human beings have the tendency of not accepting that this is happening naturally. It's kind of like it's beautiful, like mindset and opinions. It has its own way of evolving and mutating and shifting, like an organism.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens in leaps, like evolution. And sometimes it's super small and gradual, and, it takes over time. Well, we're in times that I think there are kind of big shifts. So it's interesting.
I will leave you with a very important thought.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the fact that our grandparents were racist. But here's a bad thing that shifted with the Overton window. So when we look at our grandparents, they respected their elders. The previous generation seriously respected their elders. People really listen to their elders
because they were the AI. They had the most knowledge because they that they over time.
It doesn't matter why.
Had it built in their brains.
It doesn't matter why. But the fact is, there's things that we need to not spill the baby with the bathwater. So very much like
the past was good, you're saying.
The things that in the past that were good. And
you want to shift the Overton window on some things back.
Some things we need to take a look of when we shifted, because we looked at something and shifted, we need to shift it back. And in terms of security, we need to say, this is unacceptable. So the fact that previous generation kids, or even us, like when we came to friends' places, we had some level of awe with the parents' level. We should demand back that A, we educate the kids to be nicer to older people, and B, that we demand that security sensitivity will be back, that privacy is not dead, and that we should expect that my phone will come back to not being spam central. I think this is something that we as voices need to say, this is unacceptable.
By the way, to finish up with my kind of answer to what will be in a few years, the kind of like, what the fuck this generation were doing and like eating animals, I think it's going to be letting kids that are 10 years old, 12 years old, and I know you agree with that. So having cell phones, having social media accounts, that will be something we'll look at this generation and say, what were they thinking? It's like the smoking thing, like smoking with your kids. I think that's going to be the thing. People will understand that giving those addictive dopamine injecting machines to young people, and maybe to older people as well. Maybe we will not consume it. Maybe, I don't know if there is a way to go back. But I think there's going to be a movement. A lot of problems, health problems, I think, that have risen are coming from that. Once you start seeing the link, people already see it.
Started by taking it from your 15-year-old who still locks his door at night to call his friends at like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, every time we detox it for detox him for 2-3 days from his electronics, he behaves so well. It's amazing. It's like, it's an animal. Like the dopamine deprivation is real. You see, he gets into this kind of addiction mode of like, but once he gets over it, he's such a cute kid. And then he's a monster again once he reuses it. So yep. I think that's the Overton window. I think cell phones, electronics, social media, all these kind of things, I think in a generation will see the harm, and that will be the cigarettes
it's
thing.
Back to the train spotting.
What with the train spotting this time?
So with the train spotting,
everything is
in the beginning, he says that you can choose life or you can choose heroin.
Yeah. So dopamine delivered by social media feed.
Maybe we should show Omri the fact that he'll end up in the worst toilet in Scotland. That scene was probably the best ever. Anyway, sweet.
Okay, with that, we're done with another episode of the Didi and Lital Show. We hope you enjoy it. If you have more ideas of things that shifted over the years, write to us about it. We're happy to discuss it here in the show. The Didi and Lital Show is a weekly podcast. If you like us, please rate and review us and share with your friends. We will be here next week. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.